none of those three were actually advertised on the internet. So the only way to find them was to go through a recruiter. So this is why you actually need to have a good LinkedIn profile so that you can reach out to them. The main thing that if you want to understand how to do a good LinkedIn profile is to understand what the recruiters are using to be able to recruit you. And if you understand how they're using LinkedIn, then what you can do is then turn around and use that to your advantage in building out your LinkedIn profile. And what recruiters are using is a product that they actually pay for. It's called LinkedIn Recruiter, obviously enough. And how many of you actually have a LinkedIn profile right now? So let me see a show of thumbs. I've always wanted to say that. So let me see a show of thumbs if you have a LinkedIn profile. Outstanding. If you have LinkedIn and you use it, you know that you can only connect or see the profiles of people that you have a first or second connection with. With LinkedIn Recruiter, recruiters have access to every single person on LinkedIn. That's part of what they get is paying for this product. They have access to everything. So they're going to use that to do searches to find people. And this right here is actually a screenshot of what LinkedIn Recruiter looks like. So when they're doing a search for people, this is what they can search on. And the main thing that you want to look at that they're going to be searching on are by keywords, by your current title, what company, where you're located, your seniority level, what current company you look on, anything like that. So when you build your profile, remember what they can search on, and as long as you build your profile to match that, you're going to end up on the radar of these recruiters. So this is a good comment from Bill Watch, who's a football coach, former football coach out there on y'all's side of the world. It says before you can win the fight, you've got to be in the fight. And the way that you're in the fight is because now you understand how the recruiters are going to be using LinkedIn. So when you build a LinkedIn profile, there are actually 5 different levels that you can create of a LinkedIn profile, from a beginner all the way to the all-star. The only way that you're going to succeed in coming up on the radar of people is to actually get to the all-star level. And there's only 7 things that you need to do to get to all-star level. And you got to have a good profile picture. You've got to set up your industry, your location, which is basically a zip code, an up-to-date current position, 2 past positions, your education, your skills, and at least 50 connections. Now, I'll go through each one of those 7 things one at a time. And the first thing that we want to talk about is your profile picture. These are all examples that I've pulled up of bad profile pictures. You don't want your profile picture to look like this. You want it to be somewhat professional, that people can get to. And I think that what I can do is if I stop right here, I'm going to be able to toggle over, and I'm going to start showing you how each one of these 7 things that you need to have on here. This is my LinkedIn profile. And actually, it looks like it's a professionally done photograph. This is all Photoshop that I did myself. I took a picture of myself with my iPad standing against, my back door, which you can actually see right there. And I photoshopped out the white back door of my house and then just stuffed in this thing right here. So if you don't have a professional looking photograph, get a friend that's got a camera phone, make a picture, stand next to a brick wall, something like that. If you don't have the ability to edit it out, go to a place like Fiverr, and everything on Fiverr is $5. I mean, $5 to get you a nice photo edited picture. This guy right here has been reviewed at least 690 times, and he will retouch a photograph for you for only $5. So if you need to know where to get a picture, get somebody to make a picture with their camera, go to Fiverr, have this guy touched up and make it look really good. So that's the first thing that you need, is that you need a professional photograph. The second thing that you need is you need to have an industry, and you've got to have a location. So when you look at your profile and you click on it, what they're looking for in the location is a zip code. Now let me see a show of thumbs. How many of you are taking Hack Reactor Remote Beta in one location, but plan on working somewhere else after you graduate. Like, for example, you're here, but you want to go to California, for example. All right, if you're in that position, make sure that this zip code is not your home zip code where you live right now. It needs to be the zip code of where you want to live. So if you want to move to California, go find the zip code in California and put it up, because one of the things people are going to look for is people that are in the neighborhood. So they're not going to find me in Atlanta, even though I might want to move to California, because I've got a zip code here of Atlanta. And then for the industry, pretty much you can put in anything you want in here, but for what we're doing, information technologies and services is pretty much the standard of what you want to put in there. The other thing, let me cancel out of this, is that you have an option of putting in here a title. And what I recommend doing is, remember, one of the things that recruiters can search on is keywords. So use this right here to basically stuff in some keywords. And I changed my title for this presentation to give you an idea, because software engineer at CNN is my title, and that's what it normally says. And so I just changed it and just put in, that I've got experience with, some of these other things, so that it, gives those keywords when they search, they're going to be able to find it. So that right there are the first two things that you're going to need. So we'll go down to the next one. So you have industry and location. You have to have a current position. So now the question I have for you guys is, how many of you right now have a full-time job? And obviously the answer should be none of you. You're all looking for one. So you don't have a full-time job. So what you can end up doing is come over here and look at what I put. For your current position, put, for the company name, just put seeking new opportunity. Very clear, very succinct. That's exactly what you're looking for. That your title, here's you another chance to stuff some more keywords in there, and that how long the time period that you're looking for your current position. And you want to have a description in there for there. So by putting that in there, you let any recruiters know, exactly what you're trying to do. So we've got the current position. The next thing it's going to ask you for is your two past positions. So what I have here is my current position, and you can tell something is your current position is by this check box right here. So you have to put in there that this has to be checked for this as being your current position. And then you have your two previous positions that you have out there. If you've, in my cohort, there were quite a few people that really had only had one job before they started working at Hack Reactor. Studying at Hack Reactor. So you have to have two. So if you've only had one job in your life, split that up into two different positions that you had within that one company, so that it basically ends up with two companies. So you could say you were a learning and development project manager at Aaron's, and then put it in again and say that you were a software programmer at Aaron's or something like that. So at least you've got the two previous jobs listed there for them to see. And when you put that in there, if this job has nothing to do with programming, then word it to a description that actually says something that makes it be what a recruiter would like to see, that you were a fast learner, that you were able to adapt, you were able to take charge, a leadership position. Just use some basic keywords that people would like to see in a potential future employee. So we've got the two past locations. The next thing that you're going to have is education. Normally education is listed in reverse chronological order. If I would always recommend that you put Hack Reactor down as your education. If you've gone to college, put that in. If you graduated, put that in. If you attended college but you never graduated, still put it in. Just put that you attended during that date. You just don't have to leave the field for your degree blank. If you've completed any of the online training courses, go ahead and put that in, because it fills out your profile for them to see. And what if you'll see, where's my education? my education is down here, and it shows both my undergraduate and my graduate degree. If you actually never went to college at all, consider putting in your high school that you have in there. So at least it has, Hack Reactor, and it also has, that you graduated from high school. So that covers that. The next thing that you want to end up having is your skills. The skills things is important to have because anytime that there's a change in your profile, it automatically shows up through LinkedIn Recruiter on the radar of recruiters. So they get alerted if there's a change to your profile. Even if you're not a friend with them, they will still get alerted. And that's really what you want to have happen. And what you have in here is your list of skills and endorsements. Now, by default, I have a lot of work experience. And you can see down here, even at the bottom, I've got things with more votes than my top skills that I've got listed. If you do nothing, by default, LinkedIn will sort these in the order that you have the highest number of endorsements will be listed first. The first 10 are here, and then anything else are listed in the bottom. Now, what you want to do is you come in here and click on edit. A couple of things that you absolutely want to do. I want to be endorsed. By default, this is no, say yes. The reason why, if you ever go to somebody's LinkedIn profile, at the very top above their picture, you'll get a little box saying, do you want to endorse Jennifer for these skills? And it gives you like 4 skill sets. Those first 4 are the first 4 in this list. And if you turn that on, people that are visiting your profile might just automatically click on that, and you now got 4 more endorsements that are in there. And then you want to show my suggestions to endorse my connections. So you want to have that checked so people can see it. And start adding your own skill sets that are in here, and make them varied. I know HTML, HTML5, CSS, CSS3. Those are 4 different skill sets you can put in there, and then people can get on there. Now, you have the ability to change the order that they're in. So you can see down here, you have the drag to reorder. So by default, instead of being in the order that the number of endorsements, you can change this order. So if I want more people to endorse me for like test-driven development, I can drag it right up here, and it's now number 1 in my list. So that's kind of what you want to do, is put the 10 most important ones that you want to have in your dream job out there, with the top 4 being your most important ones, because those are the ones people are going to get endorsed on. So you want to have that out there. And like I said, anytime that there's a change to your profile, then the recruiters are going to get notified. So what you need to do is go ahead and just start putting everything in here. And you can see I've got these 10 and then probably 10 more. So I've probably got 20 different skills listed here. So you want to do the exact same thing. Then go get everybody in your class to go out and endorse you for every single thing. And as soon as your profile gets changing like that, then the recruiters will be notified, and then you'll pop up on their radar, which is what you want to happen. So this is one of the easiest ways to actually, get to the attention of recruiters. And then the last thing that you have to have is at least 50 connections. And they top it out, let me get all the way up here to the top. Regardless of how many you have, if you have over 500, 500 is the most that it's going to show. There are, I don't know, somebody said there were like 40 people that were on this presentation tonight. Well, if you get all of you to connect with each other, that gives you 40 out of the 50 that you need. So that gives you what you need to do. Connect with people in the class ahead of you, connect with people in the class behind you, so that you can get to at least 50. If you don't have 50, one of the things that you can do, and I would recommend doing that, is you can come up here, and here's the window, there's a search at the very top of the screen. What you want to do is this, by default, it's on all. You want to change it to people, and you do a search for Hack Reactor, because there are a lot of people that have graduated from Hack Reactor. So once you've done this search, you come down here to advanced search, and you want to say second connections. These are people that you don't have a connection with right now, have keywords of Hack Reactor, that are out there, and they show up. And it's very simple. All you do is just click on connect, 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 connect. Go down the list. You get to the bottom of the screen. There's 10 pages of these, and you just keep going, and you start connecting with all these people. And then once they connect with you, you get an email message, and then you turn around, and then you just send a email through LinkedIn to all these people and say, hey, I'm a fellow Hack Reactor grad. I'm in the hiring phase. They're all going to understand. They've been there. They've been through it. And say, would you mind endorsing me for these skills? And tell them exactly what you want them to endorse you for. And so not only do you get the 50 connections, but then you also get some more endorsements. And just, reciprocate and say, by the way, if there's anything I can do to endorse you, just let me know. And when I did this, I think probably 2% of the people that I communicated with asked me to endorse them back. But if they did, then go ahead and make sure that you do that to pay them back for the help that they've done to you. The other thing that you can do in the search is go back over, and like I was showing you earlier where you were searching for Hack Reactor people, you change this to people, and then you change this to, let's say, recruiter, and you do a search for recruiter. It comes up, go to advanced, and then what you want to do is change it from the keyword to a job title, because you want people that have the name recruiter in their current job title. And what you want to do is look at current job title, not a past title. I don't want somebody that was a recruiter 5 years ago. I want somebody that's a recruiter today. And I only want people that are a recruiter that are located near where I want to work. So put in here your zip code, wherever it is that you want to work, and it will actually go out and it will show you all the recruiters in that area. And actually, if you come back and actually change it to second connections, actually, hold on, let me change this to my location and then do a search. And then you could go through and just start connect, and you connect to all of those recruiters themselves so that they can actually reach out to you and put your resume in the hands of recruiters. So I went through this pretty quickly. I'm going to jump over to the next part of this first half of my presentation and talk about what you need to do in terms of your GitHub account, because what you've done with LinkedIn is going to get you recognized by the recruiters, who's going to review your resume and put it into the hands of the hiring manager and then come in for an interview. What you have in your GitHub account is what's going to determine how well you're going to get, how well you're going to actually do in your job. The other thing is, in your LinkedIn profile, make sure you list your projects. Make sure that in each one of the project descriptions, you actually include a link to your GitHub account where that project is stored so that people can actually go to it. So moving on to GitHub, this is once you've got yourself in the door and you're starting to be interviewed, they're going to look at this. And here is one of the feedbacks that I got from one of the companies that I did get a job offer for, that the night before I went in for a 10 a.m. interview, I got this, and this was feedback from their programmers that went through and looked at my GitHub profile, and they reviewed my code, and this is what they sent me. And when I showed up at 10 a.m. for my interview, the very first thing I went through every single one of these bullet points and had to answer why I had done things the way I did them versus what they thought was a better standard. So in my area of town, it's every place that I went except for one company looked at my GitHub account. One company actually had my code downloaded and had it up and running and had it up on the screen when I was in there interviewing and was asking questions about it. So the other thing that you want to do in your repos is to make sure that they stand out, because even if they don't download the code and actually install it and run it, they're at least going to look at the README file and they're going to go through and read it. So over here, I've got an example of, here's one of my repos that I have out there on GitHub. And you go through, and here you go through is the README file, and it gives you all this information about, this is what this application does. Here's the table of contents. Here's a link where I've actually put this application out there on Heroku so that they can actually see it live, so they don't have to download it and install it. The requirements to install it, and then if you have screenshots, you can put that in there. Here's one that I did from my thesis presentation, and here's the same repo. One of the things that most people don't use is this very top part of their repo. Most people leave that blank. That's a big mistake, and the reason why is two things that you're going to get is it's going to give you a chance to put in a very short description, but then it also gives you a chance to put in a link to actually where you have that application hosted. And every one of my things that I did, I had hosted on Heroku. Even my dance party, it's out there on Heroku for people to see. And if nothing else, what I wanted to show that to people is like, this is something I did 3 months ago. This is my thesis program, that I did 3 months later. This shows you regression of my skill sets and what I've done in 3 months. So, Mr. Employer, think of what I can do for you in the first 3 months of working for you. So that's one of the things that I wanted to put up there. When you look at this one, it's a little bit more detailed than the first one that I put up. You actually have pictures that are put in there. So actually in the code, you can actually add a folder called screenshots that have nothing more than PNG files, JPEG files that I've taken of my application, and then put that in there. And then with the GitHub markup, you can actually link directly to that so that you can see it. It talks about how to install it. Here's what the actual application looks like, what the requirements are, how to contribute with a team member that's on there. So even if somebody's not going to download my code, they're actually going to read this README file. They've got a very good idea of what this does. And then also by including this link up here, then they can come over here and actually look at it, and they're like, oh, here's the application, here it is, this is what it does, and they can actually go through it and be able to see what it is. Because the goal is you want to get a job, and let's just make it easy for them to be able to get you going on that job. So that covers that first part right there. And then I'm going to jump in and go through some quick things to see how well and ready you guys are on getting prepared for your interview. And I'm going to go through and give you a couple of actual questions. These are the actual questions that I had when I was interviewing for jobs. So if you're looking at this and they said, what's the difference between those three? Everybody look at that, think to yourself, do you think you can answer this question? Very simple. The first one, this is an assignment statement. This is a simple comparison. This is a strict comparison between the two. So next question, is this a valid JavaScript? Is this valid JavaScript? So everybody tell me yes or no if you think this is valid JavaScript. Yep, this is a valid JavaScript. Now here's another one. What will each one of these lines return? So if you say type of hello world, what would be the output to the screen? It'll be string. The second one will be function. Third one, fourth one, and fifth one will all return object. So that gives you an idea of what's there. Now this is the next one is, what will each of these lines return? So if you call the function foo, and it comes through and it goes through this and it has this console log A, what will this print out to the screen? Anybody got any guesses? It actually prints out aardvark, because this if true is always true, because it's basically asking if you know the difference between something that's truthy or falsy. So the A is going to now become aardvark. So this is going to be aardvark. This console log B is going to print out banana. So then if you call bar, this function, it's going to ask you to console log A. So if you know what this is going to print out, what do you think that's going to print out at this point? It's undefined. Good job, everybody. What do you think the B is going to print out? And it's going to print out banana. And the reason why, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to move that, is this is a global variable. So therefore, it's available in both of these scopes that are down here. So here I am asking if, do you know what a closure is? Because everybody's going to ask you what a closure is. So, or scope. So here is a good question to ask you, how well do you understand closure and scope? So if you have this right here, can you tell me what it's actually going to output to the screen when you run this? And the order that it's going to output. So anybody got any guesses on that? So the answer is in correct order is it's going to output start, end, index colon 5, and it's going to do index colon 5 times. And the reason why is that it's not counting the I's by the way this is done. So the follow-up question when I did my interview was, how can you change that function so that it prints out index 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? So look at this and then figure out how you can change that so that it prints out each individual index value. So that's one of the things that you need to know. Next one here was, what are going to be the 4 outputs? So if you call the function foo, oh, sorry, didn't mean to move it again. If you call foo, what's that going to output? So if you call this function, what's it going to output? It's going to output the word bar so that you see that. This next one, if you're going to call biz.foo, so it's going to call biz and it's going to be calling the foo part of that, which is going to be calling foo. So now it's going to say console log this.bar, and what it's going to end up actually outputting on for the second one is going to be biz. And then for the third one, if you call it again, there is no scope that you're calling it under, so it's actually going to output bar again. And this one, when you call it under the scope of bang, it's going to actually output bang for the last one that you have there. So the next one is all you young kids, because it looks like all of you are about the same age of everybody in my cohort, which means I'm old enough to be your mother. So y'all have been surfing the internet, for about a decade now. Probably none of you have ever licked a stamp to show you how old I am. So let's see how well y'all do on CSS and HTML questions. So what's the difference between these 3 different selectors? Anybody got any suggestions on what's the difference between them? Yep, the first one right here is actually calling the div element and changing the background to red. This is taking all classes that have everything that's been assigned a class of div and changing the background to blue, everything that has an ID of div and changing it to green. And no piggybacking off of James, that's just not right. James is not going to be there for your interview. So the next one that you have here is give me either a CSS selector or a jQuery selector that's going to select these 2 inner list items. So if you have that, either, I don't care if you give it to me through CSS or through jQuery, what would you do to get these 2 list items and make sure that you're not getting any of these other list items so that you have that. So what you have here is for jQuery, you can do it a couple of different ways. So you're talking about you're going through my list, so you do .mylist UL list item to go down into the tree that way. Or you can do it through a CSS selector down here. so that you have to know how to do that. Now, this one is, if you have these 2 lines of CSS code, and this is what your HTML looks like, what is actually going to be displayed on the screen as a result of applying this CSS to this HTML? So everybody got it in their head exactly what this is going to do. So the big question is, do you know what, I hate to do that again, do you know what that CSS directive is going to give? So if you look at it, what it's going to do, the first one right here, the span color red, is going to make this red, and it's going to make this red. This says I'm going to be taking any span that's the immediate first child of the div with nothing in between it. So there's a paragraph in between here, so it doesn't apply to this one. There's nothing between this div and this span, so it's going to apply, this second line is going to apply to the next one, which is going to change the background to green. So the last thing that I'm going to leave you with is a whiteboarding exercise. And actually at the company where I'm working at CNN, this was the last thing that I was asked. And I ended up answering it. And as a result of how I answered it, they said that was the tipping point for me to get the job. And the question was to write a function that takes a string as an input and then returns whether or not it's a palindrome. And if you don't know what a palindrome is, it's basically a word that reads the same from front to back. Now, the reason that it was the reason that was the tipping point for me on doing that is I wrote that function in 2 lines of code, and here are the 2 lines of code for that single function. So there is no reverse function on a string. There is one on an array. So I basically, in 1 line, I'm doing a whole bunch of stuff. I'm converting it to lowercase so that we can rule out that. Converting it to an array, reversing it built into the array, and then converting it back out to a string, and then comparing the 2 to see what the results are. And the trivia point for you guys is, what is the longest palindrome ever created, and who created it? So anybody know those 2 things? All right, looks like nobody's guessing, but the longest palindrome that was ever out there, and it includes spaces, is able was I, ere I saw Elba, and it was written by Napoleon. So if you ever write that out and you do it frontwards and backwards, including the spaces, it is the longest palindrome that was ever written. So that's the end of my presentation. I know that I've gone over the usual 20 to 30 minutes that y'all have. If you have any questions, go ahead on anything that I've put in on LinkedIn, GitHub, or the interview questions. I'll be glad to answer them. And if there's anything I can do for you, just let me know. My name is Jennifer Bland. I guess I should have said that at the beginning. And my email address is very simple to remember. It's ratracegrad, because I graduated from the rat race at the age of 51 at gmail.com. So I appreciate it. It's nice to be able to come back. I'm a graduate of Hack Reactor Remote Beta 5, graduated June 20th of this year, and started working at CNN on July 20th. So if I can do it at my age, by God, all of you kids can do it too. So thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
After I started adding stuff to LinkedIn, I have 40-ish invites from what looks like recruiters and stuff. Should I just add them on, or is there pros and cons there?
You never know which recruiter is going to have your dream job. So why limit yourself, because you don't know what cards they're holding. So I would go through and friend myself with everybody that's out there. Now, what you would have to do if you're working with multiple recruiters is this. You never, ever want to have 2 recruiters presenting your resume to the same company. And the reason why is the company is paying the recruiters, and they're usually paying them like 20 to 25% of your salary. And the companies sure as hell don't want to get into a, well, you pay me, you pay me, you pay me, and they're just, and companies will basically say if they get the resume, even if it's the best candidate out there and they get the resume from 2 different companies, they just toss it. They don't want that headache whatsoever. So if you're working with multiple recruiters and they say that they're going to present, say, I need to know exactly what companies you're going to present me to and details of the job. And then if another company has already presented you, just tell them no. They understand. They understand how the game works because it's their living. So they shouldn't have any problem with that whatsoever.
And the second part of that question, even if a bunch of them are in San Francisco, because I'll probably be staying in New Orleans.
It could be, I mean, because they could be a national chain that could have an office in New Orleans. So you never know, because some of these companies are big, so you want to do it. And one of the things that somebody asked, did I get my job at CNN through a recruiter, is yes, absolutely. And that job at CNN was not advertised on their website. It was the only way you got in was through recruiters, and they have a set number of recruiters that they use. So unless you were talking to one of like 4 or 5 that they were using, then, you weren't going to be submitted to CNN at all.
I have a question about the interview questions. Were you ever completely stumped on any of them?
Actually, I'll tell you the ones that I did get stumped on. Let me get through. I'm just going to start from the beginning and get through. I wasn't sure when I did a double take when I first saw that one, and I was like, my gut feeling was I think that would be valid, but I couldn't tell you the exact terminology of why that would be valid. I got this one correct. And the follow-up question. And I got stuck on this third line right here. I knew exactly what these 2 would do, and I knew what this one would do. And I said I would be guessing if I had to do that one. Then on the CSS ones, I got that one, and the color one. When I answered it, I said that this one would have the green background. Because I said this thing was, the first child after the div, so this wouldn't count because there wasn't something in there. I kind of had my logic completely backwards. I had it mixed up with another CSS selector that was on there. All right, any other questions? If not, I appreciate everybody. If you have anything else, just let me know. And nobody ever asked me about Stack Overflow. Nobody asked me how my points were on Stack Overflow. Nobody ever looked at my Stack Overflow account. I did create it where you could get notified for jobs. And I think, in the 6 months since I've graduated, maybe 4 companies have reached out to me through Stack Overflow, but I never did anything with that whatsoever.
I have a quick question if no one else does. Jennifer, thank you so much. It's nice to put a face to your name. I've read some of your Quora answers, actually. I was like, who is this person? She's really smart. But I noticed you had an MBA on your LinkedIn page. I also have one. We can take this offline if anyone else has any questions. But how did you position that? Did that affect you positively, negatively in any way? Do you think it opened some doors potentially? Just can you expand on that a little bit?
For me, a couple of people did ask about that, and the manner in which I got my MBA did end up being a big positive once I explained it. I got my MBA. I used to work for Apple Computer in Silicon Valley. I used to work in California, so I know what it's like working out there. And Apple had a program called the Apple Management Masters Program, where they would take 30 people a year to get your MBA, and they would have, it was through San Jose State University because it was right up the street. the professors would actually come to the Apple campus, and we met twice a week. We would do a class for 7 weeks, and then have, finals, and then starting the following Monday, we would start another class. So Apple paid for the whole program, allowed us the concessions of having the time for the classes, which were 4 hours, Tuesdays and Thursdays. And the fact that I was in that program and that I graduated my MBA through, the program at Apple was a very positive from that standpoint. As far as what I am doing, because I've changed, completely pivoted in my life to get back into programming this late in my life, is that it's not something that people are going to look for as something that's going to pull you out of a pack of resumes, at least from my perspective. But once they found out how I got mine, they really took notice at that point. But hopefully that answers your question, Jim.
Yeah, thank you. I have another one, but no one else is going to go. Can you talk about boot camps? Like, did you talk about boot camps and you went to Hack Reactor? Did you kind of shy away from that? How did you frame the whole boot camp thing?
Being here in Atlanta, it's a different perspective. It's not something that's as well known as it is in San Francisco. So when I started talking to recruiters, they were like, oh my God, you're looking for an entry-level job at best. I mean, you may not even qualify for an entry-level job. And, a couple of recruiters that I worked with were very reluctant about it. They were like, 3 months, like, you're not going to know shit. And, they started pulling out all their questions. And that they're just reading from something that they've got on a piece of paper and expecting you to answer what they've got is the answer on that piece of paper. And one of them was so concerned that they actually found some online thing that it was a time test of JavaScript skills to see how you do, because I think they were really hesitant on presenting my resume because they weren't familiar with the concept of a boot camp. And I scored at the advanced level on their thing, and I completed it in like 12 minutes. It was supposed to be a 20-minute thing that they expect you, if you don't, sometimes people don't even get all the way through it in the 20 minutes when the 20 minutes is up. And once I scored at that level, their attitude completely changed. And they were able to put it in. The recruiter that I got my job with at CNN actually had filled a previous Hack Reactor grad here in Atlanta in a job. And it was his first introduction to what Hack Reactor was with this other graduate. So when I came along, I touched base with him, and he gave me the name of the recruiter. And when I talked to the recruiter, he was like, oh, yeah, I know about it because he'd been through it with the previous graduate, and he had no problem with it. But the other one that I worked with was hesitant until I scored well on their test of my ability.
Okay. Last one real quick. Given the years of experience you have, like, was that a big part of your resume? Or was it a lot of projects? Kind of like, did you follow the sort of the Hack Reactor paradigm for your resume?
I did until I had my second interview, and then I completely changed it as a result of that. The reason why is that I had so much experience, as you've noticed, is my original take on my resume was I was 2 pages, like 10-point font, with 1/4 inch margin, top left, right, bottom. So I could put it in there on 2 pages, and, the feedback from the people that do the resume during the resume sprint was, no, got to change it to 1 page. And I was like, there's no way in hell that you're going to put 30 years of experience on 1 page. And I got it on 1 page, and I interviewed with 2 people. And when I went in to interview with the first one told me, well, you need to make it 2 pages. And when I went into the second one, and I started talking about, well, I used to work for Apple Computer. I used to work for Coca-Cola. And I mean, I can remember to this day, as soon as I said that, the guy went straight down to my resume, and you could see his finger going down my resume. He goes, this isn't on here. He goes, this is like totally different. I would have called you sooner if I had known that you had worked for these other big companies. And so I did end up changing my resume to 2 pages just to reflect the years of experience that I have.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Sure.
I have a question about age discrimination. Do you feel like that's the kind of thing that we should try and hide if we're older than the usual crowd?
Are you older than 53?
Nope. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm 53. I don't think I had any problem with age discrimination. And I have pretty much up until 2 years ago, when I stopped working, I never really had a problem with age discrimination, even in jobs that I was in. And at CNN, I'm older even than my manager. On my team, I think my manager is 36. I think he said one day he was 36. And the other programmers are, I would say, 28 to 32 range. So I'm 20 years older than they are. And I personally, and that's true even being a female, so you would think that I would have, two things against me for being old and being a female, but I've never experienced that. So hopefully you don't either.
Anybody else have any more questions?
Will we have access to the slides in some way? Look over them?
I would not have any question about sharing them. It's just up to you guys if it's up with your HIR people. If that's okay with them, they can just ping me and I can send it up. And I love on the keynote. This is the first and second keynote presentation that I've ever done in my entire life. I did my training on a Windows computer. I had not used a Mac for programming until my first day at CNN, and they give me a Mac, and I'm like, oh shit, where's the second mouse on the keys on the mouse? I'm like, where's my second button? Yeah, it was like, so it's like weird stuff, It's like I went through a lot of Googling how to use a Mac my first couple of weeks when I was on the job. So my DevOps skills, I went through Hack Reactor on a Windows computer, so my DevOps skills outrank yours, So I got it working on a Windows computer. So, yeah. All right. I guess that's pretty much it. I'll wrap it up. And, if the HIRs want to reach out to me and just let me know, I'll be glad to send over. Okay. I'll send it over through Slack so that y'all have it. And it has the first one has my presentation notes on there. So you can pull up some information that's on there. So hopefully this will help out, and clearly everybody's going to be a success in their lives because you've got some of the best training underneath your belt. So hands off to you for those that are about to graduate. I wish you the best. Email me, let me know where you are. And for those of you that are behind them, just keep this in mind so that 6 weeks from now, when you get ready to go out and tackle and get your perfect job, you can refer back to that at that time, so it'll make more sense to you. So,
I wanted to thank you so much for your time. This was a great presentation. Really, thank you.
I'm going to have to tell my mother I got a standing ovation, even though I can't see any of you. YouTube.